From being replaced with a body double to being a member of the Illuminati, here are 5 celebrity conspiracy theories. Paul McCartney is dead. Paul McCartney is arguably one of the biggest musicians of all time, inspiring countless genres and groups with the music he made with the Beatles. So is it possible that he's not the same person who founded the Beatles with John, George, and Ringo? Many people say yes. Born James Paul McCartney in 1942, as the bassist and one of the lead songwriters of the Beatles, Paul McCartney needs no introduction. Nor does the Beatles, but for the sake of a coherent story, the Beatles are a rock band from Liverpool active around the years of 1960 to 1970, in which they became one of the biggest rock bands of all time. However, around 1966, rumors actually began to circulate that Paul McCartney, the original at least, was actually dead, and was instead replaced by the winner of a look-alike contest, while the Beatles were arguably at the height of their success. So how did this happen? It is believed that on November 9th, 1966, Paul McCartney would get into his car after having an argument with his fellow band members, and speed off, eventually crashing the car, resulting in his death. Some claim that it was M15, the UK Secret Service, that had actually replaced him, concerned about the distress it would cause to their fans. However, some even go as far as to say that the other members of the band replaced him as a joke. Unbelievable, right? Well, maybe not. As recently the Beatles had retired from performing live, and had begun work on the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band album, which had drastically changed their style, both musically and physically, potentially further hiding the swap. Fans who made these speculations actually began to hear rumors that the band was distraught with their decision and began to hide clues in their music, which caused many to analyze every single line as well as listen to songs backwards. One such clue is in a single release during the production of the before-mentioned album entitled Strawberry Fields Forever, in which it is believed that John Lennon sings the lyrics, "I buried Paul," towards the end. Compelling evidence until John Lennon would actually come out and say the lyrics were actually cranberry sauce. A couple of years later, they would release the album Abbey Road, featuring the iconic album art featured here, which has been parodied and copied many times. However, rumors about Paul would once again come to light, as fans believed that the art was covered with references to Paul's death. The walk would be dubbed the funeral procession, stating that the members were dressed as such. John in white to represent the heavenly figure, Ringo in black to represent the undertaker, George in denim representing the gravedigger, and Paul being barefoot and out of sync with the others to represent a corpse. They also mentioned that the Volkswagen Beetle behind them had the license plate LMW28IF, meaning Linda McCartney Weeps or Linda McCartney Widow, with Paul being 28 if IF he was still alive. However, when this was recorded and released, Paul was, or would have been, 27. One further piece of evidence is that although Paul is famously left-handed, he was holding a cigarette in his right hand, leading many to believe that this was evidence that the two had been swapped. After the Beatles had disbanded and Paul found himself isolated on a farm, he would actually do an interview in which he said he understood the speculation, as he used to do an interview a week to make sure he stayed in the public eye. Now he feels like he had done enough press for a lifetime and just wished he was a little bit less famous. After this, rumors about Paul pretty much stopped, although some still follow it with an almost cult-like belief, despite the fact that Paul still releases music to this day, with his most recent solo album, McCartney 3, releasing in 2020. Stevie Wonder isn't blind. Now, I have to admit this one is actually kinda funny. Stevie Wonder, born Stevland Judkins, is an American songwriter and singer known for his influential contributions to pop, soul, and jazz, despite the fact that he's blind and has been since birth. But some have theorized that he isn't actually blind and is just pretending. Other than the fact that he can play piano, which is incredibly difficult even for people who can see, what makes people believe this? To start, It's alleged that while performing Hey Jude at the White House, Paul McCartney, yes, the Paul McCartney from the previous entry, had accidentally knocked over a mic stand while performing, and Stevie Wonder had caught it before it had the chance to fall. Wonders, who is also said to frequent basketball games in person despite the fact he can't actually see the game, was alleged by Shaq in 2019 that he had greeted him when Shaq approached him silently without saying a word, being proof to some that he may have a partial ability to see. Many other stars have also continued this theory, including P. Diddy, who claims that Wonders had described the physical appearance of an outfit to him, and Lionel Richie, who says that he saw Wonders drive a car backwards out of a driveway. I have heard that he said that he would like to take up photography, or at the very least participate, and I've also heard that he's driven off-road vehicles with Ozzy Osbourne, although I might be confusing him with someone else in this instance. Obviously, a lot of these things don't really sound like something a blind person could or would do, but the answer might be a lot simpler than you think. The simplest answer is that he isn't actually blind, or at least not fully, as you can have something known as partial vision loss. The other answer I see coming up with people who actually have experience with the blind is that they can develop certain skills by relying on their other senses. For someone like Wonders, who hasn't had his vision since he's been able to have a coherent thought, he's likely been able to develop many skills throughout his life, not even mentioning those related to his musical ability. Wonders has actually opened up about his vision loss, stating that he was actually born 6 weeks early, and simply put, doctors just didn't know what they know today, and as a result ended up giving him and another girl too much oxygen. The end result was that Wonders lost his ability to see, and the girl, who was only born about a minute before Wonders, unfortunately passed away. After taking off his blacked out glasses while making an acceptance speech while being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, fans would get a rare glimpse at Wonders' bare eyes, which, for lack of a better term, appeared visually damaged. Despite this, some have theorized that he could have potentially been making a joke when he originally declared himself as blind, a joke that he now just can't back out of. But either way, the full extent of what he can or cannot see will likely never be known, as if it is a lie, it is a lie that he has kept up with for over 70 years. Beyonce is in the Illuminati. This one is a little different as there isn't really a timeline to follow, only clues to Beyonce's potential Illuminati involvement highlighted by fans. Beyonce was born in Texas on September 4th, 1981, and rose to fame becoming the lead singer of Destiny's Child, an incredibly successful girl group. And after they disbanded in 2006, she would have an even more successful solo career, becoming one of the best-selling artists in the entire world, and even performing at the Super Bowl in 2013. So what kind of tricks can you pick up from Beyonce if you want to be even a fraction as successful as her? Well, according to some, just join the Illuminati. Many believe that Beyonce and her husband Jay-Z, along with others like Kanye West, are members of the Illuminati, a secret organization of the most powerful individuals in the world controlling everything through subliminal messaging. Well, let's look into this. To start, Jay-Z is almost synonymous with the symbol of making a triangle with his hands, something that Beyonce would mimic during her Super Bowl performance. Although Jay-Z says it is meant to be a diamond, one can't escape the similarities it has to the Illuminati triangle, or more likely pyramid. The pyramid, depicted in its most simplest form as an eye in a triangle, is known as the Eye of Providence or the All-Seeing Eye. It is often seen alongside Freemason imagery and has been ever since the late 1700s. But there's another place that you may have seen it, the $1 bill. But what does it mean, you may be asking? Well, I don't really know. It has appeared in many different medias in many different ways, including Christianity-themed paintings. Some believe its inclusion on the $1 bill is a theory within its own right about the Freemasons' control of the country, or at the very least, its founding, while others like Stephen C. Bullock believe it to mean that we are being watched and need to hold ourselves up to a certain standard. In the context of the Illuminati, however, I can only imagine it means, yes, we are being watched. But I don't see the Illuminati as a group that wants to better us. Instead, control us. Watching us to keep us in line. Former congressional candidate Carl Miller would actually come out with a theory of his own, stating that he believed that Beyonce was in fact not black, but instead a dark-skinned Italian woman pretending to be black in order to gain an audience. However, I couldn't actually find this on Twitter, meaning it was likely removed by Miller himself, or maybe even Twitter. And I would just like to say that during the recent Florida Republican primaries, Miller had actually received the least amount of votes out of any candidate in his district. But despite these theories and the alleged imagery in her music videos, Beyonce would actually poke fun at the rumors in the song Formation when she would sing the lyrics, "Y'all haters corny for that Illuminati mess," showing at the very least that she was aware of the allegations against her. What else? Well, nothing really. Other than the fact that she is married to Jay-Z and is incredibly successful, other than combing through alleged imagery in music videos and playing songs backwards, there's not much left in the form of concrete evidence to analyze. So I leave the question up to you. Do you think that this is enough to conclude that Beyonce is a member of the Illuminati? If you think so, or if you think I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. Britney Spears is a government agent. Obviously, Britney Spears has occupied a lot of our news feed in the past couple of years, as she's escaped the conservatorship that she has been in since 2008. But did you know that only a few years prior, she was actually believed to be a government agent? Britney Spears is most well known for being a pop icon as well as one of the most popular and sought after artists of the early 2000s, having sold over 200 million records worldwide after signing her first record deal when she was only 15 years old. However, for the Mississippi-born singer, it was not all smooth sailing, as towards the second half of the 2000s, Spears would seem to continually find herself in the news and public eye after several incidents. These included driving with her infant son in her lap instead of a car seat, attending a drug rehab for just a single day, and the now infamous moment in which she shaved her own head. These incidents, including others, paint the story of someone who, despite having a very successful and ongoing career, had internal struggles as well. So now you're asking, would the US government want someone struggling with their own demons like this working for them? Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. In fact, so the story goes, this is exactly what they paid her for. During the majority of the 2000s, the country was run by sitting US President George W. Bush, a controversial man himself in a time before modern political discord. With 9/11, the Iraq War, and more happening all within his presidency, did Bush and his White House pay Britney Spears to distract the public for things they didn't want them to focus on? Well, let's look at the timeline. To start, in 2004, a documentary about Bush and 9/11 created by political activist Michael Moore entitled Fahrenheit 9/11 would come out, surprisingly featuring a cameo from Britney Spears, in which she had this to say about the president.
Honestly, I think we should just trust our president in every decision that he makes, and we should just support that, and be faithful in what happens.
Do you trust this president?
Yes, I do.
The interview is surprisingly out of left field, and neither Spears nor Bush would ever comment on it in the future. In 2006, Bush's approval rating is at one of the lowest points it would ever reach, around 37%. And as previously mentioned, Britney would drive with her infant son in her lap, no car seat. Although this might not seem like a big deal, especially if you don't have kids, the media coverage for this was massive. In 2007, Bush would make the announcement that Al-Qaeda, the terrorist organization behind 9/11, had reformed despite US efforts. That very same night, Britney would have her infamous shaved head episode, leave rehab, and attack a paparazzi by striking one of their vehicles with an umbrella. I was only around 10 or 11 at the time, but I could honestly tell you that I had never even heard of Bush's announcement, but the talk about Britney Spears' public freakout lasted for weeks, if not months. In March of 2007, the Attorney General fired 8 attorneys he believed were not loyal to the president. This was a major blemish on the image of the Bush White House. A story comes out of Britney Spears allegedly hooking up with musician Howie Day while the two were both in rehab. After this, the news about Britney went relatively quiet as she entered a conservatorship led by her father in January 2008. This conservatorship would last until the end of Bush's presidency, about a year later, and continue on until 2021. I've spoken with my lawyer about Britney's conservatorship, and she said that the courts are very careful when doing something like removing someone's right to care for themselves, not to mention a world-famous music icon like Britney Spears. But Britney seemed to have a quick turnaround from being a free woman to being involuntarily hospitalized after allegedly being under the influence of an unknown substance, having her children taken away from her, and being placed under lock and key by her father. Could this be the work of the Illuminati? The Bush administration meddling with her life to prevent her from revealing state secrets? Or simply a mental breakdown of a highly publicized star who grew up in the public eye? It's hard to say, but the timeline when placed side by side is uncanny at times and has caused many to speculate and wonder if Britney Spears really was an operative for George W. Bush. Tupac is alive. Tupac was a New York-born rapper who moved to the Bay Area, becoming a figurehead in the West Coast hip-hop scene. He was among the best-selling music artists with lyrics discussing troubles from the inner cities, with Wikipedia calling him a symbol of activism against inequality. However, Tupac would get involved with the West Coast versus East Coast rivalry after joining Suge Knight's Death Row Records, publicly fighting with various other artists, and on September 7, 1996, Tupac was shot in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas and would die about 6 days later. The shooter would never be identified, although some believed it to be the notorious B.I.G., also known as Biggie Smalls, a former friend of Tupac who began fighting with him publicly as well. However, Biggie would also be gunned down only 6 months later in Los Angeles. Tupac was a record-breaking artist, starring in multiple films, going platinum multiple times, as well as being inducted into both the Hip Hop Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But there was one issue. He wasn't actually dead. Or, I should say, he might not be. Ever since his alleged demise, tabloids have been coming out near monthly, claiming the late rap icon was spotted in New Mexico, Africa, or Cuba, suggesting he had never actually even died in the first place, instead escaped by faking his own death. But why? So the story goes, Tupac found out about a plot to kill him. So, with the help of his bodyguard, he faked his own death, escaped from the hospital, and has been in hiding ever since. Suge Knight would go on to promote this theory, an alleged vault of over 100 unreleased songs, saying that with Tupac, you never really know if the rumors are true. Forums would be created online discussing the fact and analyzing lyrics in some of his many songs, including Ain't Hard to Find, in which he said, "I heard rumors I died, murdered in cold blood, pictures of me in my final state, but that was fiction." Fans believed that this was in reference to his assassination, despite the fact it was released with the All Eyes on Me album while he was still alive. His autopsy photo also allegedly circulates online, leading others to believe that that was the fictional pictures of him in his final state he had mentioned. Theories would further circulate with the release of the Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, Tupac's first posthumous album, released under the stage name Machiavelli. Fans were quick to point out that Machiavelli is a similar name to the author, Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote a story about a prince faking his own death. And the title includes the reference to 7 days, which is approximately how long it took Tupac to die after being shot. Further analyzing the album, fans were also quick to note that Suge Knight was not referenced as an executive producer, but instead as Simon, what I'm being told was the first apostle to see Jesus after he rose from the grave. And finally, it is said that if you listen to Hail Mary, a song from the Illuminati album, you can faintly hear the words, "You think I'm dead," followed by Tupac stating, "Wait 7 years," potentially giving a subliminal message that he would reveal himself in due time. However, 2003, aka 7 years later, would come and go, and then 17 years. And now almost 27. and Tupac, to the best of my knowledge, has still not returned. Despite this, his posthumous albums would continue to arrive, with 7 of his 11 platinum albums being released after his death. He has appeared in music videos through deepfake technology, has had his voice manipulated to be put into songs, and even headlined Coachella, a major music festival, as a hologram, giving him one of, if not the, most successful posthumous career ever, making $3.5 million in 2011, 15 years after his death. So the question is, are the theories, stories, and movies true? Did Tupac actually fake his own death and begin to live a life in Cuba? Or is he simply a lost soul the music industry refuses to let go? Well, that's it for now. Be sure to like the video to help the algorithm and subscribe to see more content like this. If you like this video, why not check out this one where I talk about celebrities that have taken lives. Thank you MJ Art by Day for the suggestion, and I'll see you next time.